Sure. And thank you very much for jumping in. It's an exciting thing to be able to sit here and share a little bit about Sidekicker. We absolutely love what Tanda is doing with the scheduling software and the payroll component of that. We operate obviously in the similar field around HR technology and shift-based workforces, but we tackle an entirely different problem, which is getting access to great shift workers and temporary workers. So Sidekicker is an on-demand platform. Some people like to think of it as the Uber of staff. You can tap into rated and reviewed temporary workers in several different fields. And we, very excitingly, just to give you some context, we work with 4,000 businesses, 12,000 sidekicks, and we're very proud that the average rating of a sidekick is actually 4.8 stars, which means that businesses are getting access to really high-quality workers.
Okay, and then Tyrone, do you want to share with us a little bit about Redcat?
Yeah, so Redcat's a point of sale and loyalty software provider to hospitality, mainly focused. And we really specialize in kind of franchise. So some of our big clients are like retail zoo, so including Boost Juice and recently Betty's Burgers and Nando's and Grilled and companies like that.
Excellent. And I don't think Domino's needs much of an introduction. I think everyone knows who they are, but maybe...
Sorry, what do they sell?
But maybe if you want to tell us a little about your area within Domino's and what their role is.
Okay, so I actually look after multiple areas within the business, predominantly the operations innovation centre. So that's anything that's back of house. So we're responsible for the rollout of the GPS delivery tracking platform, which you may be aware of. We rolled out Tanda. We've recently rolled out Workplace across the workforce. So it's a lot of those ops innovations. But under my remit, I also look after a field ops team, so they work to provide training to the franchisees, and we also do some internal audits to make sure our stores meet standards. So that's pretty much a summary.
That's great. I might start with you, Tyrone. We're talking about big data here, and that's one of the catchphrases here. Can you tell us about how Redcat has helped their customers capitalise on the data that you're collecting from the point of sale system?
So I guess being a point of sale, that's where like the data almost starts, like from the customer point of view. So one of the best ways is like actually loyalty systems. So it's, of course, like without loyalty, you can definitely track, what you're selling, when you're selling it, like peak times, and have access to all that data in real time. But with loyalty, then you're actually tagging to like who it was, age groups, and then you can then target, for marketing purposes, and then even go down to the next level of helping where to open your next store, like demographically, because all of a sudden I realized that, and it's actually quite surprising how often people think, or businesses think, I target like 20 to 30-year-olds, and then when you actually look at the data, it's actually quite opposite. So then when they're opening a new store, they'll actually, look at a different demographic instead of, I don't know, opening shopping centres or tourist areas. They might go to a regional retiree kind of town or something like that.
Does that resonate with you, Kelly? Is that you're using that data? Is that how Domino's are using that data? Are they going to extra steps there in that space? About using that data and the ways, like new stores, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we're a data-rich company, so each area within the business has their own set that they make decisions on. So we have BI and analysts that analyse the data and provide it in a way that they can make decisions. So definitely around territories, we've got platforms that we have partnered with third-party providers that make us make educated decisions on what we think the sales will be like when we split territories or we're going into greenfield sites. So yeah, absolutely, we make very clear decisions based off the data that we have available.
Sure. Charlotte, someone said to me once that data may be the new oil for businesses, but the challenge is not tapping it but refining it. Do you want to elaborate on what that very wise person might have said meant?
Did I say that to you?
Yeah, possibly.
Look, I know I have to eat my words now. I think all of us as businesses sit on a huge amount of data, and you can actually get quite lost in what is meaningful data. So the Sidekicker in itself, we're really no different to any other business in kind of working out, well, gosh, what do we do with that data and how do we harness it? Because we have so much of it. About 9 months ago, we put in really sophisticated business intelligence tools, and we use dashboards called Periscope, which actually enables us to have real-time analytics on anything from how happy our sidekicks are as workers to what their average hourly wage is, noting that we do pay award as the minimum, but is in how much they're earning weekly, how is that affecting their experience, how long does it take for them to get their first shift? And what we do with that data is actually then can make really big decisions, but on the fly. So, for example, do we turn on more recruitment ads to bring in more sidekicks, or do we turn them off? And things like knowing, if our sidekicks aren't earning enough, and we have some really good data around that, they'll probably leave because they'll be looking for more work. So we're obviously not going to bring in, more sidekicks because that will then hamper the efforts of others to get shifts. So we look at data, from anything from active users on the platform like businesses to help with our marketing to tracking new hires to, NPS, all those types of things. But we also look at things, for our workers as well, and how can we improve experiences on both sides of our marketplaces?
Yeah, so you mentioned there improving experiences. Kelly, the Domino's GPS system is probably the piece of innovation that Domino's is most well known for. Was that solely about improving a customer experience, or were there other outcomes? Was that, a result of looking at something else?
Well, it actually started, it was a safety initiative and a fleet management solution. So it actually started as an operations initiative, not a customer-facing engagement piece. It was only through the learnings that we identified that there was an opportunity. So we feel as a business it's about harnessing those opportunities that present themselves. So it started off as a safety initiative with alerts so that if a robbery happened, for example, that we would know that they'd been stopped too long and we could send an alert to the manager to say that there could be an issue with the driver on the road. We didn't have visibility over 50% of the business. Once a driver had left the store, we had no way of identifying what was happening whilst they were on the course to that customer's house and returning. But through that, we identified that there's an opportunity that we could actually engage with the customer. So prior to GPS, the customer didn't know who was delivering their pizza, but we had that data. So there was no harm in displaying if they gave us permission to display their name and what their favourite music was or their sport. So it opened up an opportunity to that human element of the delivery. So post-GPS, we actually got more feedback that mentioned drivers' names than we had before GPS was launched. And we also thought, well, if we're tracking the team members to the house, well, why not display that so the customer knows where the team members are? So, data that we learned, we had our guys go, okay, well, we're exposing ourselves here. It's quite scary. Our ops guys actually lifted and we reduced the number of double deliveries that we were doing. So automatically increasing the product quality because the customer wasn't waiting that extra 5 minutes whilst they were taking that extra delivery out. So we instantly saw a shift and we saw that our operations lifted because we were completely open, honest and transparent about that element of the business that was previously hidden. So, yeah, it was just through opportunity, but it never started out as a...
All that started with what was a security measure? Yeah,
we had a corporate fleet that the cars got damaged a lot quicker than a personal car would be damaged. And there's a lot of stories out there about how the delivery drivers on clothes would do unsafe deliveries that also ended up with wheel hubs and stuff that
Can
went...
you tell us one story?
But yeah, so it started as
Gloss over that one.
Glossed over. Yeah, so it actually started as a way of just pulling our repair and maintenance down on our company fleets, having a little bit more visibility over what they were doing and reducing speeding incidents. And it also gave us enough data if an incident happened that we could provide that to the relevant third party, whether that would be the police or insurance agencies. But yeah, through that process, it just opened up more and more opportunity, which, that I guess you've all read about it in the news. It's been quite a success for us.
I'm not sure, has anything like that ever happened at Sidekicker or Redcat? Have you ever started on a piece of technology to work on this particular thing and you're working, getting data, and then you realise, oh shit, hang on, we can use it for this, and you end up using it for something totally different?
Probably not to that extent, but quite often whether new functionality or features developed for a particular reason, and then of course we're actually single code base, so everyone has the same version, and then once it's released into the wild, so to speak, other clients go, oh yeah, this new feature is fantastic because I'm doing X, and you go, we never even thought that you could, that wasn't the purpose of it, but fantastic.
Look, I think, we're like you as a platform, and I was so impressed earlier with the product releases that you put out. We are constantly looking at new product features, etc. And I think Tyrone's right. Sometimes what we think we're releasing and the impact it's going to have actually can turn out to be entirely different. I do think with us and working with this huge on-demand workforce and the data around it, our sidekicks can really surprise us. And because they're people and you can't always predict human behaviour, what we've tried to do with the Sidekicker platform with that is look at, data metrics around, are they logging into their app? When were they last engaged? Have they responded to a text message about their shift tomorrow? And from that, we're starting to use predictive data to determine whether someone's going to show up to the shift, etc., which enables us to obviously then put out fires before they start, which then improves client experience, the sidekick experience, etc. So I think, yes, we're always iterating and always surprising ourselves with what we can do.
That's fascinating. I believe at one of the first hackathons that Tanda did, some of the people ran a similar idea of trying to predict when people would take a sick day. It's quite interesting to hear that you guys have actually got that sort of technology now.
Look, it's just something that we're definitely refining over the time, and we're learning by using data. It's the data that's shown us this. I think with us, and everyone who has casual-based workforces knows that sick leave, grandmother's dying, they all happen on the same day.
Just before a music festival.
Oh yeah, or the races, or a big shift, or anything like that. So we want to make sure our sidekicks have a great experience and they get to work with great clients, but equally that can only happen if clients have a great experience with a temporary workforce. And temporary workforces have been, in some respects, a necessary evil. Businesses haven't liked using temps because they're expensive, and traditionally they were, because there was a very opaque middleman in front of them. Now with using technology, they can access them really quickly and cheaply, and we're facilitating that, but we also have a role in playing in ensuring that both are protected.
Yeah, and I guess the other side of going on a project and getting some data and finding lots of other uses is, I think there's a mentality out there that more data is better, and we just grab as much data as we can, and then people end up sitting on data and they don't know what to do with it or how to use it.
Yeah, so we've had many examples. You sit down with a project team and you might sign up with a third party, and you're sort of working out, well, how long do you trial something for? We've had cases where we've said, okay, well, I think, to get enough data, we're looking at about 12 weeks. Then we turn it on and we get 2 weeks in and we're going, you know what? It's just paralysis by analysis if we keep going with this, because we've already got the answers, like, what's going to change over the next 10 weeks? Let's just make a decision. We either move forward or we move on. So we have a philosophy that, it's okay to fail. Sometimes you try projects, if it doesn't work, you've got to fail before you get emotionally attached to the idea. So we want to fail fast, and so that's our motto. So it's okay to fail, just do it quickly, because the more you get emotionally attached, the more it costs your business as you try and work through an idea that may never ever get legs.
Did you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, with I guess, what was the term you used? Data fat. I guess from our point of view, we've kind of learnt from experience and almost learnt together with clients over a long period of time. So I think at a high level, we have some standard side of KPI reporting and dashboarding tools and stuff like that. So that we give just standard to customers, so they can at least at a high level go, this is, I'm in a good spot, I'm in a bad spot, and then from there normally go further, whether they use BI tools or whatever. And the other great thing with for us is like integration partners, because often and yes, Tanda is a integrated to Redcat. So often it's the partner that goes, hey, we've got this client, and the problem is that to get this result, we actually need this from you. So then they actually sometimes drive that sort of initiative.
Sure. Would you say that in those data-rich companies, is this information best used by managers at the top, people in the beef, people in the middle, people at ground level making decisions? Where's that data? Where do you get the best use out of it?
I think at all levels of the organisation, and I think as leaders of an organisation, you need to display that and tell the story with the data that everybody in the organisation can understand. So, I mean, we prototype, which is it's a concept about just testing an idea before we go and spend lots of money. But we do that maybe at the corporate level. But then we utilise the data and we feed that back to franchisees. If we decide to go forward with the product, then that allows us to bring our franchisees on the journey really early with an early indication of how successful we believe something will be, and we communicate the ROI. So I think it's, even down to the team member level, like we have a driver's leaderboard with the GPS system where we communicate how well they are doing at the store level and even nationally. So depending on the data, I think you've got to present it in a way that it's meaningful, but you've got to do that at every level of the organisation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The tools that we use are able to be accessed by everyone at Sidekicker. I think what can happen though is that we're able to drill down into so much data and we can try and pinpoint that you can actually get lost, and it's actually, you can go on this random walk and everything's really fascinating, or it certainly is to me. But the difficulty is that it can actually be really overwhelming. So with that, I think with taking data and insights is making sure people understand what's relevant to them and what they're trying to manage and help solve for. So not everyone in the company needs to know absolutely every single data point or are trying to fix that. So if you can try and isolate areas of responsibility and then give them the information and tools to fix that, that's going to mean that you're all having shared outcomes from it.
Yeah, and I think my experience at Tanda has certainly been that we adopt a very open access to the data for everyone, because similar to that previous problem, you never know what you might be able to solve or what you might be able to do until you see what people are using that data for. So sharing amongst those teams is really important. Coming back to you, Tyrone, there's a lot of data stored in the life cycle of Redcat. So wondering how that has assisted your clients to develop their workforce and have what they need at their fingertips on that front line.
Yeah, well, a dashboarding tool which is standard and in real time. So
is this managers using that, or people on the floor?
So everyone. So from head office level down to generally it would be the owner of the business or the franchisee, how far down that they would like to give that information. But then each level has their own personalised dashboard. So obviously, you don't want your supervisor knowing your gross profit and things like that, but you probably definitely want them to see the top 10 selling, drinks or whatever it is. So I think access to that in real times like super key, because even if we go back to the keynote, and I think one of the things where they were getting, was it labour reporting once a month and then went down to weekly or something like that.
Yep.
And then daily and things like that. Like the quicker you have the information and the quicker you can like make a decision to fix that, whether that's, you know, anything from, you know, your average spend's too low to, I don't know, even naughty people hitting no sale or deleting items and all that sort of stuff. And then us sharing that data to other partners like your Tanders or whatever it is. So, you know, you're actually getting labour percentage in real time. So you might go, you know, call the Gold Coast store and say, hey man, you're running at 50%. You need to knock someone off. Or, man, you're at 10%, you're getting smashed. Can you get onto Sidekicker and get a couple extra people? Because, you know.
Absolutely.
I just remind the audience, because we will throw into audience questions soon, that make sure you have the Hoover app and make sure you're submitting your questions. I've already seen one come through there. I want to ask Kelly, one of the things that we worked with Domino's on is the challenge of getting the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time. So setting that up, though, was a bit of a journey. And what can you share about that journey, and what have the benefits been going through it?
Yeah, I think we're still on the journey. So
That's fair enough.
Tanda probably don't like that, but I think we are.
No.
So we've set up the projections. I think it's going to take a lot of data analysis to get that right. I think it's a space that nobody has really worked in yet, and it's going to be an algorithm that I don't think we really know what that is at the moment. So we've started in phase one, where we have got the projections and we've got basic formulas for how to roster, and we've had that historically. I think now it's a way of refining it and linking that to the awards so that we can populate lines on the roster, which Tanda have already built, and it's a fantastic product which is in trial in our stores. But I think the hardest component will actually be trying to identify the skill set of a team member and how you grade them to be able to put the right person against each shift, but then being able to spread the hours out evenly so it's a fair playing field. And, you know, we're not even convinced that we know how to do that, but it's definitely a journey that we're really excited to be taking with Tanda, and we know that it's going to be a hard slog to actually solve that, and it's going to require a number of different partners to allow us to get closer to that final piece of the puzzle. But yeah, it's a journey that we want to take and are really excited about it.
Yeah, I think there's even along the way, as we get part of the way there's been benefits along the way, but I don't think anyone at the Tanda end would shy away from the fact that we want to keep evolving, and that, you know, there's a goal down the road that is much more aspirational, and how we crack it, we're not necessarily sure yet, but that's the journey we're on. Charlotte, Sidekicker are all about getting people in the right place at the right time. What have you learned from working in that business and placing them?
Yeah, so Sidekicker is I think it's quite an interesting business, because typically we are almost like, people come to us at the beginning as like the lender of last resort. They're short-staffed, they've built their roster and there's a gap in it. And then, you know, having, you know, amazing technology like Tanda and Redcat integrated shows, well, if you're actually down a team member, you could lose X number of sales, which will hurt your, you know, bottom line. For us, I think what's really interesting is, and I think where the world of, you know, the future of work is going, is that each of us are really specialised. So we solve quite a small problem, seemingly, in getting businesses access to great talent, and, you know, Tanda does rostering and Redcat. What that means for a business like Domino's is that if we continue to work together and to hone in on what we're really good at, and then integrate in the future when it's ready for each business, that's going to mean that we build ecosystems that are incredibly strong and help businesses like Domino's solve multiple problems. There's
a question coming in from the audience, and I think this is quite good, sort of the counter view. Do you think that this focus on data has taken the focus away from the focus on people and teams? And is there a negative effect there? And how do you manage time to analyse all this data while not taking people away from dealing on the front line with customers?
Well, we're first and foremost a people business, so we don't think that data takes away from that. It actually gives us a way to work with our people better and more efficiently than we ever have before. I think it's just part of business. If you took the data away, I don't know how you do business. Data just allows you to do business better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. If we didn't use data, and I'll give you an example of last weekend. It was a really busy weekend in Brisbane from a hospitality marketplace. Rugby was on, races were on, etc. It was also actually university exams, so a large number of university students are temp workers. If we didn't use our data to understand what the marketplace was doing, but equally the Sidekicks experience, we wouldn't actually been able to give our clients great access to staff, etc. But more importantly, we would have hurt our staff's ability to get access to work by not understanding what they need. So I'm a huge advocate for the right people, using data and creating tools and insights and then giving it back to frontline or, business decision makers to enable us to make informed decisions to ensure that our employee experience or our customer experience is continuously improving.
Yeah, I was actually just going to share a bit of a story because actually my dad's a chef and actually my grandfather's a chef, so I've grown up in...
Are you a chef? Was that your first job?
No, my first job would have been dishwasher at about 9 years old in my dad's restaurant.
Yeah, yep.
And I also flipped some burgers like you, so... But about this time last year, I met a very successful restaurateur down in South Australia and operates multiple venues. And he actually said to me, he had a very, very basic kind of IT infrastructure in his few restaurants, and he said, "Yeah, I used to hate all that stuff, and I want my waiters even talking to customers, and I don't want these computers. Why do I want people to see computers and all this stuff?" But then he goes, "You know what? Like 10, 20, 30 years ago, customers would actually normally engage with you, and they'll want to know your name, and you'd get to know them, and their favorite bottle of wine or whatever. But these days, people, they're probably less likely to chat. They're probably less likely, face-to-face to share their favorite wine and stuff." And that's when he, implemented, POS system, even a reservation system, so he can go, Bob Johnson, he always orders, I don't know, Coronas. So next time he books, I'll make sure I'll go, "Hey, Bob, how are you?" So he's using it in a different manner to actually, because he can't get the information he once did. Or maybe he was just getting old and couldn't remember, but anyway.
Well, I think that soft side, as you say, you can use the data to increase those soft skills if you've got the right employees. Are there any other benefits, and Kelly, I might direct this to you, that you've derived out of data? You've got a casual workforce there with, casual workforces often get tagged as having low levels of engagement and high churn. Have there been any benefits on the data side that have helped you with those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think for us, we understand that Domino's is a place of opportunity. So our CEO started as a driver and worked his way up to global CEO. And we've got multiple stories, like I started as a pizza maker and worked my way up. But we also understand and appreciate that that's not the path that everybody takes. So, our responsibility is to make sure that they're armed with the tools, using the data that we have available to make their work experience and their career path as pleasant as possible, even if it is an interim solution and it's a gap measure whilst they're studying or, they're backpacking in Australia. We utilise that data and we communicate with them to make that experience as pleasant and memorable as possible. So we do use data, like I said, we've got a driver leaderboard and we're very competitive in stores. So, drivers compete against other peers, and we have in-store challenges for that. We also have...
What's an example of a driver competing against another peer, considering that the GPS monitor is tracking their safety?
So, no, it's 3 elements, and it's definitely on safety. So we measure harsh driving and speeding incidents, and if you fail any one of those, you've got no chance.
Right.
But then it's on efficiency. So with the GPS driver tracker, we actually learnt that we had more data sets than we ever knew we had available. So we always assumed that the majority of the time spent was actually driving between the store and the customer's home. But when we released GPS, we realised that is in fact not the case. Going through Macca's drive-thrus on closes is quite common, or even just the hustle time. So predominantly, you cut a pizza and then you put it on the rack, and a driver comes and they work out their change. So we've got a lot of wastage whilst it's sitting on the rack. So it gave us an opportunity to crunch that. So calling the drivers before you've even cut the order, they're prepped so they can leave as soon as the order comes out the oven. But the next phase in that is, it's car park waste time or hustle time. So from the time they leave the store to the time they ignition on and leave the geo-fence of the store, that was actually quite high. It was 3 minutes. And we realised that the drivers weren't actually aware of where they were heading before they had left the store. So it's about the education on the delivery area, making sure that they've got the GPS turn-by-turn instructions set up before the pizza comes out the oven. So it's efficiency measures as well that allow us to crunch that time. And, since GPS, 30 minutes was really the standard. We're now challenging ourselves that we want it to be a 10-minute delivery. We want to get to a point where 10 minutes is the new norm. And that will take us years, but we do have stores like Australia is a powerhouse in our company. We operate in 7 markets. We invented this technology, and then we provide that to our other markets that operate under the Domino's Pizza Enterprise banner. The Dutch are actually outperforming the Aussies who invented the technologies. So the world record at the moment is a week's delivery average is 5 minutes 45. So it's a Dutch store. So this week we've got a Queensland store that's going after that. And that's using applications...
Can you say where that store is?
Them?
Yeah.
I think I'd need to speak Dutch.
Okay.
It's something like Luxembourg.
Oh, sorry, you've got a Queensland store there.
Oh, sorry, the Queensland store is Albany Creek, and so far they're on 6 minutes and 5 for the week. So
did they get new cars or something? Is that just faster?
No. So again, it's just using data. So when you're online, and this might sound a little bit stalker-like, we don't have your details at that point, but we actually have a make screen which we call future orders. So we know what you're ordering, and when it gets to the payments page, there are customers that spend up to 6 minutes processing their order. We can actually see what's in your basket and pre-make the order before you've actually submitted that to a store. So it's about using the data and working in parallel so that we can find efficiencies. So we never compromise safety and we never compromise product quality. It's about finding smart ways, utilising the information available to us to make us better. And, we're really excited about that.
Yeah. I want to get to cybersecurity, but maybe first, Charlotte, I know Sidekicker are big on enhancing experiences. Are there some examples that you have about data being used to make people's lives happier in their time at work?
Yeah, definitely. There's kind of 2 elements to it, particularly on our client side. We sit on data, historically, and so we can actually predict when businesses are going to need to flex up or flex down their workforce based on potentially what their industry they're in. So, for example, hospitality we know is really busy during like November and December, Christmas parties, races, all those types of things. And then in January and February, it's quite quiet. So we can actually help predict using the data we have when businesses are going to need to flex up and down. And that's really important as well, because that then informs our our recruitment strategy, because all of the sidekicks are our employees, do we turn on the funnel? Do we turn it off? Where are sidekicks in that funnel of from when they've applied to say we want to work at Sidekicker to us saying you should work at Sidekicker because we are selective. Only 15% of people who apply actually come onto the platform, and that helps again with client experience. So we can really easily tap into different elements of, both client funnels, but also our funnels to help ensure that both, Sidekick experience and client experience is as high as it is.
Yeah, great. So on cybersecurity, there was one of the first questions that came in was how do the delivery drivers handle the extra invasiveness of, their employer knowing where they are and track their GPS data? And I'm not, whether you want to touch on that example or just any example, what's the reaction been to people knowing more about what they're doing and privacy concerns and any cyber security concerns around that?
Yeah, that's probably one that I'm not familiar with, but we have a security team that manage that, so it's really important to us that we maintain the security of a customer's data, but it's probably one that it's not my specialty, so Has
there been any, and this is for any of you, is there any pushback to making this data more accessible or using more data that you're finding from your employees?
We certainly have a responsibility. We store people's data. So I would imagine all of us as businesses are extremely aware of that. A well-known HR company last week had a breach of data, and it just shows that it can happen no matter the size, etc. So our head of engineering, Isaac, is on us all the time, and I was actually saying to Rod earlier, he's encrypted absolutely everything, and I continuously lock myself out of my banking platform and our platform and everything like that. So we're overly secure at this point, or certainly too secure for me to use.
I'm surprised it's that hard because hospitality people will probably, if you make them do a capital, lowercase, and a symbol and a number, they'll always forget. Constantly, the reset function must be very good. So being from the hospitality point of view, I guess most of our clients are really, really excited that we deal with that. Like from the Redcat perspective, they go, "Great, you hold all my data, so you're responsible, right?" Which we are, with especially privacy laws and things like that. But from the end user, so say like a loyalty member, them handing over their data, that is their choice, and generally, the reward is that they, whatever it might be, they get some special offer or they earn points or whatever. So there's always that trade-off with everything. There's not, we're definitely not spying on their SMS or anything like that.
Can I ask a question on that? Do you think that people at the beginning with loyalty programs understood what a loyalty program was, and that businesses on the other side were actually collecting data, and it started off with, Qantas and Woolworths and those types of things, and you're earning lots of reward. Yeah. You think that people have cottoned on and they're less likely to want to share?
Definitely. I think probably in the last few months they've cottoned on a lot more.
Why in the last few months?
I don't know. Aren't they a partner of this event? I don't know. No, that's something. No, in the last few months, it's become like, even I was reading, and I recently switched to Android, and all of a sudden, even for the for Google Pay to work, it goes, "Oh, I need to contact your SMS and your contacts and stuff," and I was like, a little bit uncomfortable with that myself. But from a loyalty perspective, no, I don't really think they understand why, but generally they're happy to give it because the benefit normally outweighs their information, which is generally, it's not overly invasive, mobile number, email, etc.
We're just coming up on out of time. There was one more question. Does Sidekicker have a free app to show what information is available? I believe I saw a Sidekicker stall just out
my
the front
team's
there.
here. I've got 4 of the team here from Queensland, and 2 of them wearing Sidekicker t-shirts, Lexi and Jack. Both have laptops on them, so they're straight outside, and we can show you the platform. It's a free platform, which is so exciting. You actually only pay for sidekicks who've worked, which is wonderful. So all of you can sign up for an account today if you'd like. Otherwise, myself, please don't hesitate to come up, or also Alicia and James are in the audience as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Charlotte. Thanks, Tyrone. Thanks, Kelly. Please stay around for the next session.